Right, hi everyone, this is the 2005 past paper. Now just before we start, I'm going to circle this. On this past paper, this is the higher tier. They don't have the higher tier anymore, which means that back in the day you could only get between a D and an A star on this paper, which means they basically got rid of all the easy questions. They've changed that these days, so instead it's got all the easy questions plus the hard ones. So if you find this slightly harder, it's just because all the easy stuff has been taken out. Okay, this first answer, the answer is tertiary, because it is a service. Now, if you see up here, it says it's an in-flight service. So you know that's going to be tertiary. Just in case you don't remember, primary is getting things out of the ground, you know, like kind of the initial part. So that'd be getting the resources. That could be like farming. Secondary sector is when you actually produce the good and make it. Tertiary sector is the service sector. So no, next bit. 2 ways in which the strike could have damaged the company. I'd go for potentially, you could have had a loss of customers. Could be bad for their public image. You could say that it might lower their profits, and you might say, up here it says they have to pay compensation of several £1,000s to each worker. There's 4 different things you could say I've just said there, but importantly, you've got to describe it. If you just said, for example, loss of customers, you would only get, and I'll just write that down, you'd only get 1, because you've got to say loss of customers and you've got to say why. So they'd lose their customers because customers might say to themselves, we can't trust this company's going to be able to provide the product, so we'll go with someone else. Okay, on to the last bit. It says, suggest 3 ways in which trade unions can help their members. Now, people sometimes get confused between this one, right? Some people might write strike, or like go slow, or things like that. Now, they're methods trade unions can do to get what they want, but way they can help their members is things like they can get them better pay, they can get them better working conditions. What else would be good? Pensions. What else? They could give them better training, holidays, bonuses, anything. Yeah, but I like pay, working conditions, and pensions as easy ones. I can't spell conditions. Conditions. Okay. So when it says suggest, you just have to state them. Okay, the first part of this I think is quite easy. And it's saying explain 2 ways in which the owners of SkyChef could motivate their workers. So we know the ones we can always go for and say, for example, you might say, fringe benefits, or you might say bonuses. I'll put fringe benefits and bonuses. By putting those 2 things, you'll be on 2 marks. You have to then explain why that would motivate the workers. So fringe benefits, or explain them in more detail anyway. So I think there's kind of 3 marks here. First of all, I'd say fringe benefits, you could say, these are. And I like fringe benefits because you can give examples. So these are things like giving them free car and free gym and things like that. So you're saying what they are. Then also you can say why it will motivate people. And you can say they'll be motivated because it makes their lives easier. For example, free gym means that they're going to feel fitter, so they're going to be more, they're going to work better. Free car, it's easier to get to work. They don't have to worry about all that. So I think there's 3 sections. You say what it is, you explain it, and then finally you say why it makes them more motivated. So bonus, don't just say bonus, then say what a bonus is. A bonus is an extra bit of money you get if you work well. After you said that, you then say why a bonus would motivate people. And you can say, if people have a bonus, they're more likely to work hard because they know that the harder they work, the more likely they'll get more money. Simple as that. Do not even think about just putting fringe benefits and bonuses and walking away. You've got to first of all explain what they are and then say why they make people feel better. That would get you 6 marks out of 4, which means they have to give you 4. Okay, the next question is like a wee bit harder. But if you just follow a very simple structure, you'll do well. Whenever it says beneficial to the stakeholders, you've got to make sure you go through different stakeholders. Do not even think about just going on about SkyChef in general. If you just go in general, you get a maximum of 3. You have to go through different stakeholders. To start off with, a stakeholder is someone who's got an interest in the business. So I'd first of all define stakeholders. And I'd say it's someone who's got an interest in the business. Then I would then go through different ones. So I'd have maybe shareholder. Other ones are customers. We've got employees. What else would be good? You could have who else? Oh, suppliers. Let's go with suppliers. Right, you can think, if you've got more, I don't mind. Right, it says consider whether or not new working practices and new technology is likely to be beneficial. Now, whenever they talk about new working conditions, they're saying things that also new working practices. That's things like new hours in the day, new break times, anything like that. But it could be different ways of actually producing the product. New technology is obviously new technology. So whether that is likely to be beneficial to, say, Sky Chef, that means they want to have, they want you to talk about plus points and negative points for each of the stakeholders. If you do that, you're going to get easily up to 8 marks. So, for example, shareholders, why would they be happy by new technology and new working practices? They'll probably be happy because they're more likely to get more profits, because workers will be working better and working harder. They might also be able to reduce costs because the new technology and new working practices might mean they need less workers, which could be cheaper, and that sort of thing. The downside, though, for shareholders is, first of all, it might actually cost a lot of money for the new technology or for the new working practices, because you might need to because you need to you need to train all the workers, so that'd be really expensive. You could also say that potentially the workers might not be very happy, so because they might be getting sacked because of these new working practices or the new technology. So that means that the shareholders would have to worry about workers being less motivated. So anyway, that's what I'd say for shareholders. Already you'd be on loads of marks. Then you'd go on to customers and say why they'll be happy and why they might be sad. Now, obviously customers will be happy because the product might be cheaper, because it's been able to be made for cheaper. It might be better quality. And with all these ones, don't just say cheaper and better quality, say it might be cheaper because. It might be better quality because. And it'll be better quality because if there's new technology, they can probably do better quality control. New working practices means that the workers might be working more efficiently. So it's all good for customers. But probably you could argue that customers may have to pay more, which is kind of opposite to what I just said, but doesn't matter. Have to pay more because of all this cost of new technology means the company will pass that on to the customers. So you might argue they have to pay more. Now the next one's easy. Employees. Why are they going to be happy? They're going to be happy because their job might be easier or less stressful because they've got machines to help them. That means they're going to be much happier. The downside is obviously they might lose their jobs because the machines might replace them. And then, moving on quickly, onto suppliers. Right, suppliers might be happy because this new working practices and new technology might mean the company's doing better. So if they're doing better, they'll be able to get more money out of them. Problem is, you could argue that as they've got new working conditions and new technology, they might not need the suppliers as much. But you get the idea. With every single question like this, do a final conclusion and just say, I think in general it would be. And for me, I think in a lot of ways it would be beneficial. But I think the people who lose out most might be the workers if they get replaced by technology. Okay, this is your first bit of finance. Now, in the past papers, there'll always be one type of finance at some point, and it will either be profit and loss, break even, balance sheets, or cash flow. In this example, you can always tell it's profit and loss when it's called profit and loss, and they're asking you some very simple questions. First of all, they're saying, first of all, what is meant by the term fixed cost? If you say a fixed cost is a cost that doesn't change, how many marks would you get? You'd only get 1. You have to say it doesn't change with output. And if I were you, I'd then say e.g., and I'd say something like rent. Right, so that means you'll then get, to be honest, you'd get 1 mark, then 2 marks, and then 3 marks, but that means I'll definitely give you 2. Right, it says one of the expenses being left out at X, suggests one fixed cost which is appropriate. Now, if you look at all the fixed costs they've got so far, they've got wages, gas, The one they haven't said is rent, so just put rent. If they have rent there, then gas and electricity or wages will be fine, right? I know some people might argue that wages are variable, but in at GCSE they count them as fixed. Right, moving on quickly. This last question says, what is Harry's net profit as a percentage of sales revenue? Right, this question comes up every single time they do profit and loss, so you just have to go through what I'm telling you. Right, net profit is a percentage. So first of all, you need to be able to find out the net profit. They haven't given you the net profit. To do that, we've got his revenue, that's his money in. And then we take away all these three numbers to get his gross profit. So his gross profit is only 100,000 because those three numbers add up to 100,000. Now, to get his net profit, we have to take away all of these things. So all these things will go away. So it's 30 plus 1 plus 12 plus 12 plus 1, which is 56,000, which means there's only, there's only 44,000 less left as his net profit. Now, I just did that in my head. Do not even think about doing that in your head in the exam. Like, you'll just have an absolute shocker. For all I know, I've had a shocker. But I don't think I have. Anyway, just make sure that you actually use your calculator. Anyway, so we now know his net profit. So his net profit is 44,000. So I'll do 44,000 on top of an equation. And I need it as a percentage of his sales revenue. So over that, I've got 44,000. Underneath it, I'd put his sales revenue, which was 200,000. Right? Then to make it into because it's obviously asking for a percentage of something, you have to times it by 100. And that equals 22%. Now, at GCSE, you don't even need to know why it's 22% or whether that's good or bad. All you have to do, whenever it says net profit as a percentage of sales revenue, you just put the net profit on top, and underneath put the sales revenue, and you times by 100. And to be honest, the best way to do that is to practice and keep on doing it again and again and again. Right, on to the next one. This is really easy, this question. So it's basically splitting up that question that you normally have for a cash flow question, where they say he's got to raise his profit, but he's got to be cutting costs. That's the key bit. It can only be raised by cutting costs. So outline two ways in which you might achieve this. So I would talk about reducing wages. And to make sure I got loads of marks, I'd say this costs 30 grand. So I'd be going on about how in the thing it costs 30 grand, so that's quite a big amount. Second thing he might do, he might reduce the hours that the place is open, because obviously that would mean there'll be less electricity and stuff like that. He could also say that he might move places to reduce the rent. So there's three kind of good ideas, I think. Right. What was I saying? Discuss whether it's going to be a good idea or not. For each of the two that you've done, you've got to have a plus point and a minus point. So, for example, the plus point for wages, I think, is it's 30 grand, and that's a lot of money. The minus side is workers will be less motivated, so they might not do as good a job. Secondly, you could say, a different one you could say instead is, you could reduce the hours. You can say this would be good because he wouldn't have to pay for as much electricity. You're kind of repeating yourself on top, but which will obviously be cheaper. But the problem with that one is that with the shop open less, there'll be less customers. I know that seems pretty obvious, but they'll give you marks for it. And then finally, you could say he could move. And the plus side of moving is rent's really expensive, and he could make it a lot cheaper. But the problem with reducing the cost of rent is he'd move to maybe a less popular place, so there'll be less customers there, so it's a bit of a stupid thing to do. Right, anyway, last bit, it says, apart from using the profit and loss account, describe ways you can measure the success of his business. Right, I would say, one thing you could say is that you could look at his balance sheet, and as long as he's got more assets than liabilities, he's doing alright. So I'd say that first of all, that's one option I could say. It depends whether you know what a balance sheet is. The second thing you might say is depends on how big a market share. If you saw he had a big market share, for example, Tesco have got like 28% of the market for supermarkets. So if that went up to like 35%, they're obviously doing well. Other ways you could measure success, you can actually get marks for this if you said how many employees he's got. You can also say how many shops he's got. So obviously the more employees or the more shops, the more likely you'd be successful. Right, this is fairly quick, this one. First of all, what's the term used for a business that operates in many countries? It is a multinational. It's as simple as that, that's what it is. The second one is a person is a franchisee. Now, if you're not good at spelling like me, use franchise as a starter and then just add the bit at the end, so it's a franchisee. Right, describes the advantages for Peacock Group if they're going to be a franchise. Right, for this, they're only asking for the advantages for the franchisor. If you give any advantages to franchisee at this point, you'll get no marks. Now, a real good bit of advice here is you will find some of it up here. So, for example, they will receive royalty payments of 5 to 10% on all sales. So that's your first advantage. They get 5 to 10% of the profits made by the franchisee, they get given. The second thing is they can grow really quickly, and it says here they predicted that at least 40 new stores will be opened. So actually quote this stuff from the text. Say they'll grow really quickly, as you can see in the text, 40 new stores. Okay. Another thing you can say is they can expand the Peacock brand. So it's good for trying to make sure people are more aware of your product. Because the more aware they are of your product, the more money you can make. Other really easy things to say is they won't need the finance to set up because the franchisee provides the finance for it to start. And what else? They don't have the stress of actually having to manage all the outlets. They've got someone else to manage it. Now, this question only asks for advantages. So you could go on about disadvantages now, but you get no marks. Right, two fairly nice, easy questions here now. So now they're asking you about why this girl, I can't pronounce the name, I'm going to say who knows, right? It's probably easy, I'm sorry. Explain 2 reasons why this person would buy into franchises rather than open their own shops. So this now is the 2 positives for franchise. I can't spell franchise. Okay. This is really easy. What's the advantage of the franchisee? They get to benefit from the brand name. And you could say, as you say they benefit from the brand name, you can say that 90% of franchises are successful, and it's because the brand name is there. Second thing that you can say is good, which is a nice, easy one to say, is franchises are good because you get training. So the thing that I would say is you get more training. This means you'll be better at your job, and that's important. Other ones you can say is you get advice on where it should be set up. You also get, and now for me this is an easy one, you get to know how much, you get free advertising. So free advertising. And the thing is, these small firms wouldn't be able to advertise on TV, but as part of a franchise they get the free advertising. Right. On to the next one. Now this one is, it's the dream question. If this comes up, if you can't do this, you don't even need to have ever done business with it before. You just have to think common sense. It says, evaluate whether or not it's a good idea to sell things on the internet. So you've got to think about positives, plus and minuses of selling on the internet, and then you need to do a final judgment. Now, if you do not explain your points, you will be stuck on maybe 4 or 5. You have to, when you give your advantages, you have to say your advantage, then explain it. Leave a line, say another advantage, explain it. For me, this is a question where you'll be doing a little star at the bottom saying, need extra paper, and you'll be writing more. So, why would it be a good idea? What's good about selling things on the internet? You get a wider audience. Now, as soon as you say wider audience, I can't spell audience. Okay, that'll do. Wider audience. As soon as you say wider audience, you're thinking to yourself, I know what I'm going to say, I can't wait to say it, I'm going to say it right now, right? Economies of scale. If you can pull off saying economies of scale now, you're on to an absolute winner. Because you're selling to a wider audience, you can benefit from economies of scale, and this means you can go down the route of defining it, and also giving it, like one example. For example, you can spread your risk, or you can get financial. I explain that as well. Right, so you've got wider audience, you can benefit from economies of scale. You can say you don't have to pay for rent, plus you don't have to pay for workers. So there is lots of advantages there. Now, if you said those 3 ones really well, I think you wouldn't need to say any more advantages. Right, downsides. 1, customers may be unhappy buying clothes online, because the fact is, I don't know why I'm writing this. Customers may be unhappy buying clothes online because clothes you want to try them on for size. So already customers might not do it. Secondly, you might worry about fraud. So sometimes people will buy stuff and it's not with their own credit card. That could get really annoying. Thirdly, will your products actually look good on the internet? Fourthly, it's really expensive to set up. Another thing is, what happens if customers want to have returns? Are you going to pay for the returns? That could actually get really expensive as well. And I think that's pretty good. Now, what you've got to do at the end is you have to do a final judgment. So you say, I think it would be a good idea because, and I think for me, out of all of them, I'd probably say economies of scale is a good thing to say. And say, look, they're going to benefit from economies of scale, and really hone in on that one as your judgment. Oh, by the way, another downside, you could have said delivery, like you've got to pay for the delivery. Right, here we are. We're now talking about Valleywood, which, being the sad man that I am who watches the valleys, made me laugh. But anyway, moving on. It says, 3 factors the directors need to consider when trying to find a site. Now, if they give you this much writing, there's got to be a reason why it's there. And I'm sure it will just give you some answers. Like, the writing's there for the guys who just have not got an idea what the hell they're doing, but use it. So, when it says 3 factors they might try to do, these are like location factors. So it's things like being near customers, things like that. But to see if there's anything from the actual text. So it says here that they're close to the M4. So already you can say this is going to be a big one where they've got to be close to transport links. You say it's good to be near transport links because... Right, second thing, it says... Anything else interesting? Oh, here we go. They're saying that there'll be hundreds of jobs coming to Wales. What you can say here is the advantage of starting up where they are is that you want to be near workers, because if there's more workers there, you can probably get the workers for cheaper. So anyway, there's 2 things you can already get from the text. You can get that they need to be near transport links, and also be near near workers. Right, now some easy ones. You would want to be near customers. Now, does it really matter for them when they are, when they are a film studio? I don't think that really matters, being near customers. But they might want to be near suppliers, because if they're near suppliers, that could be cheaper. But for me, at the minute, transport links and workers seem to be the best ones. Right, other easy ones you can say is they might want to have cheap land. So that would be an easy thing to talk about. They might want to be able to have, what else would they want? Whether there's any grants available. Because by moving to Wales, there's normally some grants available. Now, these are loads of points. As long as you just say 3 of these and explain them, you're sorted. Only do 3, though. If you do any more than 3, they won't give you any more marks. So you've got to say 3 and explain them. Just a quick thing. With this one, I probably wouldn't go with customers, just purely because it's a studio, and I think that would be a stupid idea. Right, I'm assuming you're pretty bored right now, you've had your film, but I just want to do the last few pages. So, one advantage and one disadvantage of becoming a public limited company. Now, this is really important, this, right? It is already a private limited company, and it's becoming a public limited company. Do not put limited liability, because the problem is, and I'll just cross it off in red as well to make sure, do not put this, don't even think about putting it, because a limited company's already got limited liability, so it's not going to be an advantage. Your first advantage, it's always a safe one, is you'll get more capital by selling shares. Now, if you say that first of all, that's part of it. You're saying that's one good thing, you'll get more money. But to get more marks, say, you'll get more capital by selling shares, which means... And then you could say something like, which means you'll grow faster. So, well, not grow faster, what's better? You can expand quicker, which could lead to more sales, more profits maybe. But this is the idea. Don't just stop. Keep on going with your points, right? One disadvantage, I think there's a couple of here. One is you can lose control. I can't spell lose control. Because people have got shares in your business, that means they get to have an opinion. As long as you keep 51% of your shares, you still get control, but you can start having a few more issues on that one. Second big issue is you have to publish all of your accounts. So before, with a limited company, you only have to publish some of them. Now, as a public limited company, you have to publish all your accounts. Right. Next question, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm assuming you've been bullet pointing these ones. You've got bored, you couldn't face it. So this one is evaluate the likely impact of the development of dragon industries on the local community. So again, you need to find positives for the local community and negatives, and then some final judgment. Now, I've said this before, you'll get 1 mark for saying, a positive thing, but the big thing is explaining why it's positive, or explaining how that will happen. For example, you could say one plus side is there would be more jobs in the area because Dragon Industry International are going to create jobs. This will be good because if there are more jobs, people will have more money. And if people have more money, they'll probably spend it in local shops. In economics, we call this the multiplier effect, but you're not going to have to say that. The point is, it's just good. Everyone's going to have more jobs, everyone's going to be happier. Okay, a second good thing about the phrase development is if you run another shop, so for example you run a sandwich shop, all the people who work, that's meant to say sandwich, all the people who work at that place will probably eat in your sandwich shop, so you're going to benefit from it as well. There's 2 good things, I think, and I'll try and think of some more in a second. Some bad things, though, are there could be more traffic because there's more people trying to get to work every morning. Second bad thing is it could mean that... now, this next one genuinely is in the exam thing. There could be more noise or dirt. It could cause property prices to fall because of this. Anything like that, right? What else can I say? Another positive thing is you could potentially say that the reputation of the area might improve. And actually, it might make housing prices go up. So you could say anything like that. As long as you get 2 and 2, you're going to get up to about 7. What's the final thing you have to do? You have to do a conclusion at the end. And I think, for me, a conclusion, I think it's quite important, you could say here, is that it's probably actually good for the area because the more big businesses in the area, the more likely there'll be jobs, and that means people have more money. So I'll just kind of say that. I think it is a good thing. You could say, a really high-level thing you could say here is, it's a really good thing as long as there's enough roads to keep away the traffic. Okay, this first question wants you to do some calculations. Now, if you don't like maths, the positive thing is you only lose 1 mark, but it's really easy. It's saying calculate the estimated market share for 2004 for the merged Morrisons and Safeway. So, basically, they're going to have whatever's left when all these things have been taken away. So, for example, if you added all these numbers up, 27 plus 16 plus 15 plus 26, it comes to 84. So all those numbers together come to 84, which means there's only going to be another, there is 16% left. So the estimated market share is 16%. That's really easy. The only bit that goes wrong is when you try and add them up in your head. Just use a calculator. What type of integration is involved when the takeover of Safeway Morrisons? Now, both of those things are the same sort of industry, so it's called a horizontal takeover. The other ones, if you remember, it could have been backwards vertical, and that would be if Safeway took over a farm, or it could have been forwards vertical, which wouldn't really work for Safeway because they're already the shop. But that would be, for example, if Cadbury's opened their own shop, that would be forwards vertical. Okay, the last bit says, one reason they'd be concerned about the takeover of Safeway, another supermarket chain. Now, this is quite high level, but I'll say the high level one first. First of all, they'll be worried about a monopoly, which is basically, or maybe not a monopoly, but you'd be worried, if you don't want to use that scary word, you can say they might be too big. And if they're too big, what does that mean? They can probably charge a high price because, people won't have an option. They'll end up being stuck having to go to Safeway and Morrisons. So that's a really nice, easy one you can say. And that's basically the main idea you've got to say. The problem is, if 2 big companies come together, they'll get way too big, and that means they'll get too powerful. For example, the government would never let Asda and Sainsbury's come together, because if they did, or even better, like Sainsbury's and Tesco, if they did, they'd have almost 50% of the market. And if that happened, it would just be way too big. That means other firms won't be able to compete, and they might go bust. Right, we're almost there. The last 2 questions are, you might actually be doing these at home because you've finished them. You didn't get a chance to do these in class. The last 2 are, describe 2 types of market research. Now, we know this is really easy. We're going to try and, instead of getting 4 marks, we're going to try and get 8 and make sure we can get this. So first of all, I'd say primary research. And then, as soon as I say primary research, I would define it. And that is research that is done for the first time by yourself. Okay, so that's already 2 marks. Then I'd go, an example of this is a questionnaire. And I know you don't want to do this bit, but you then say what a questionnaire is. I know that sounds stupid, but you say a questionnaire is a survey. And then, a survey you give to people and ask them questions. I know that sounds stupid, but put it out there. They'll have to give you the marks to do that. The second one is secondary research. Then say what that is. That is research done before already, and it's by someone else. I don't know why I've written best. Before, and by someone else. And you could say that it's, an example of that would be the internet. And to be honest, I can't see you explain what the internet is, so maybe you'll only get 7, but at least that's more than 4. Okay, the last bit here, where are we? 2 reasons why small shops are able to survive. Now this is common sense. Just think about like a small shop you like in the local area and think, why the hell are they actually still doing it? I think of bike shops, because I could go to Halfords, but I hate Halfords so much. I can't tell you anyway. So, why are they able to survive? They might have a personal service, so they might be better at speaking to you one-on-one. Like when you go to Halfords, no one speaks to you, and no one's an expert. The second one is the owner could be an expert. Another good thing is that they might have convenient opening hours. I can't spell convenient, but open hours. And that just means sometimes they might open at different times which other big shops wouldn't do. Other things you can say is they might focus on one specific thing, so they might be only good at one thing, but amazing at that thing. So if you like that thing, you'd go there. For example, in Nottingham, there's a triathlon shop, and it's amazing. Like, if I went to Halfords, it'd just be useless compared to this place. Honestly, I can't tell you, I'm very excited by it. But the point is, they survive because they are specifically good at one thing. Other things you can say is there might be not much competition nearby. Okay, anything like that. You just have to have 2 reasons and explain why that's important. Like, I'll give you an example of explaining, like personal service. This means that they'll actually give the customer exactly what they want. This means the customer will want to go back again. Another thing you can say, by the way, is reputation. Right, there we are.